off me.
Don't make that time. Don't start until 11.
Those clocks out there are different, about 5 minutes different. I don't know.
Well, this is the one that we
I know.
start and stop with, so hopefully it's correct.
I had 10:55. About minutes long.
So how you been, Sue?
No, okay, thank you. We're here, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah, yeah. This weather is just,
Thank you, I know.
yes, thank you. No more snow for Chicago.
Well, not, we don't need it yet. I know it's.
So much, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I guess so. Alan keeps telling me about all the snow in his childhood, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have like 30 feet of snow.
My goodness.
At least 30, right?
Yeah. I mean, everything's shut down and can't get groceries into the neighborhoods and all sorts of stuff,
That
yeah.
doesn't happen anymore.
Mhm.
I remember walking to school when I was younger. And I even remember when I was later on in life, but I didn't have to get off the train, and my job was about 3 long blocks in the loop.
Oh,
Yeah.
messy?
The streets were not bad.
Oh, cold.
Just so cold. The water was cold.
The wind off the lake.
Yeah. I remember when it was 50 below zero. Yeah.
Haven't you been in this area all your life?
Well, no, I moved here at 17 and I really underdressed. I didn't know Chicago was colder than St. Louis. But in 79, it was the year before I got married, I was asked to babysit Dan Allen's stepsisters. They were like 9 and 12 for 3 weeks during the 79 snow. So that was my immersion into, you know, I didn't have a car and we had to walk to the store, which was okay. But even to get back to I remember having to dig out to get back to their garbage can. And the snow was, I don't know, it seemed like it was up to here on us.
Yeah.
So I had those kids out there helping me so we could get a path to get way back to the corner where the garbage cans were. And it was just, I had to know what I was bargaining for when I said I'd babysit. They went off to school, I went off to school. But Dan came over some, took us to church some until his car got blocked in. And it's, but I mean, that was like fully experiencing the consequences of the snow.
Yeah.
I lived in a rural area and when I grew up to take a school bus, I had to walk maybe half a mile to the corner where everybody congregated. It was the last school bus, it was the last stop on the school bus. And I can remember snow up there. The street that I lived on had no, it was gravel, so they couldn't clear it. So
Oh, man.
it had to be cleared by the neighbors or
Just wait it out.
Yeah.
So I get before cell phones, I guess did the school call off school some? You know,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Before cell
What
phones.
chapter are we? Because I remember
Before any phones.
when we had that 50 below zero, my sister had been in
two.
a car accident. And so we had to walk from Ashland and Milwaukee all the way west to get to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. We had to walk.
We're still in chapter 2.
Because the bus is still another weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Or did we?
Different
Oh,
churches
something.
there.
And I don't miss it at all. Matter of fact, he doesn't have to sing anymore. So who's on here?
I don't know if I
Anybody on?
Nobody so far.
Do you talk to Pam any since she moved? Yeah. You still doing your call? Great.
Yeah. We text yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah,
So she'd move in with her brother? Or she have
Yeah.
another, yeah.
Yeah. Cause he had, like 2-bedroom apartment anyway. Mhm. And she left everything.
Here?
Yeah, I mean, for people just to take.
Oh, just she didn't want it, huh?
Yeah. You know, that would have been too much to
Yeah,
take care of
wow.
his own. But how she could stand those temperatures, I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, they had
115.
temperatures above 100 there for,
Oh,
it looked
yeah.
like a couple months.
Yeah,
You know,
115.
every single day I was
118.
looking.
Where was this?
In
Phoenix.
Phoenix, in Arizona.
Recently?
that's where
Oh,
Pam,
no,
summer, yeah.
Back
I
in the
think it's
summer.
really good
It's
because
gone down, but yeah, it stayed over 100 for,
at least I thought I did.
it looked like a couple months at least.
No, thank you.
Yeah. I have a cousin who lives there, so
Yeah, my phone.
I think it's a
Yeah, true.
growing area, people, at least.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it keeps growing in population. I don't know how they're gonna have enough water
Yeah.
to sustain that population.
Georgia is the same way.
Where?
Georgia.
People moving in?
No, I mean, water.
Really?
Yeah. We couldn't water our lawns or anything like that when I was there.
Returning to one of my baseball trips I had actually.
Hey, Alan.
Or
Hi, how are you?
we went to a game.
How's your husband? Is he
He's
The
coming
game
along
on
good now. Yeah.
good?
Friday
That's all
night
he
and
asked
I
about was
fly back on Saturday. But late in the
I have
afternoon,
no
so I.
What's today's date?
I was gonna go.
The
10,
10th.
10,
The 10th?
November 10th, should be.
Good.
Tomorrow's Veterans Day, the 11th.
The armistice.
I thought, well, and then the animals will just be like, way there anyway.
Yeah.
They won't be able walking around.
Yeah. Does that disappoint you?
So I went to
Not
their.
really, I mean, I.
Some kind of
Only day that I
American
did was on the
Indian.
bottom.
Oh, yeah, a museum.
Which one?
mall.
Yeah, the 5th was Tuesday, right? So Wednesday, that was your surgery, your husband's surgery, or the 6th?
I don't think so.
They stay in the
Fifth.
sun.
5th, that was Tuesday, and then Wednesday's the 6th, Thursday's the 7th, Friday's the 8th, yesterday's the 9th.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
No, I don't, I really don't.
What's that?
No, I forget what the date is.
Oh,
I mean, how often do you have to write it? Not very often, right? Yeah.
Hey, that's true.
Yeah.
'Cause I mean.
Hello, Jacob.
Used to look
And,
at 'em. Hey, Jake,
Good morning, everyone.
good morning.
Yeah, tomorrow is the anniversary of the armistice. You
Mhm.
can think about it at 11 a.m. because it took place at the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month,
1990.
Okay.
end of World War One.
1918.
18.
Used to be
I know,
called,
yeah.
when I was a kid, it was called Armistice Day,
Right.
and now it's called Veterans Day.
Oh, okay.
So anyway,
In
But-
England, they call it Remembrance Day.
Okay.
Remember,
the king will place a wreath at the centigraph. The king will place a wreath at the centigraph, and his wife will make it.
That started when people went to decorate the graves
Yeah.
of the Civil War veterans.
Yeah. Anyway, we're in the book of Revelation in the New Testament, moving right along. But I thought we'd just review a couple of things. In the first chapter, we have a remarkable revelation to John of what?
The writing of the book.
Okay, talks about what the book is going to be about
Right.
and so on. But then he turns his head.
He
And
saw a
sees-
vision of a man standing among, what were they, 7
Yeah,
lampstands.
and someone dressed in a robe, it looked like the Son of Man, and goes on. What do you think is the purpose of that revelation to John. And in a sense to us also, because we believe that God preserved these books for us. They certainly had their purpose then, but through the grace of God, we're able to read.
Well, we think, we see this person as Jesus.
Okay, yeah,
Because it says, I am the first and the last, I am the living water,
yeah,
or living one. And so maybe this is to reassure us that Christ is alive.
okay, yeah, I think so. It's the glory and the nature of the risen Christ. It's a opening the door and he gets a glimpse of what's going on in heaven. And so we do also. And it's an assurance that there is another world, if you will. The spiritual realm exists and that it is a glorious place filled with the image that he sees is one of power, of glory, of light. He holds the churches in his hand. And so it's an all-powerful God, an all-powerful Christ. So I think it's to emphasize to us that there's power and glory in heaven. And that is meant to put what follows in perspective. That it's in the context of a powerful God, an all-powerful God. And then he's told to write these words to the 7 churches of Asia, 7 congregations in what we now know as Western Turkey. And those are, we see some things as we did in the very first one to the church in Ephesus, some good and some bad. So it's an unbiased, if you will, estimation of what the church needs. It's tells some good things and some bad things, some places where there's improvement needed. It mentions in that first one, the Nicolaitans. We don't really know who they are, we can guess, but it emphasizes to us that these were real churches with real problems, with real situations, maybe a little bit foreign to us, and yet they're preserved for us so that we can think about some of those same issues that they were to think about. And I guess the question as we read these accounts, these letters, if you will, what would be written to us if somebody was if John was told to write a letter to the Northwest Church of Christ, Chicago, Illinois, care of its angel, with Patrick Odom or whoever, what would it say? Would it say, you're doing great? Or would it say, I have some things I want to bring out? So that's one of the things that we need to keep in mind as we go through this. What would these words written to these churches, would they apply to us or wouldn't they? The compliments as well as the challenges. Anyway, we looked at Ephesus last time, so we'll move on to Smyrna as we keep that in mind. What do you know about Smyrna? Anything? It's a town over there.
According to my notes, 35 miles north of Ephesus.
Okay, pretty close. Yeah. Some people say that a guy named Polycarp was there later on. And anyway, what struck in my mind is, we picture Turkey as a Muslim nation now, although technically it's a secular country, but mostly Muslim. But the town of Smyrna, along with many other places in Turkey, were predominantly Greek on up into the 20th century. In fact, Smyrna was primarily a Greek city until 1922. And there was some conflict between Turkey and Greece. And one of the consequences of that conflict was that Smyrna was set on fire. And estimates of the casualties range from 10,000 to 100-some thousand. And so pretty much the Greek influence in Turkey was eliminated, but it lasted a long time. I was fascinated when I ran across that information that Smyrna was Greek.
So even through World War I, it was
Yeah.
all
Yeah. Well, anyway, the Ottoman Empire
collapsed. Right?
chose the wrong side. And then, anyway, that's a whole another story. But anyway, that was Smyrna. But to the angel of the church in Smyrna, write, these are the words of him who is the first and the last, who died and came to life again. I don't know if there's a special significance to the from clause, because the from clauses in each of these letters are different. And they relate back to what has been revealed to John in chapter 1, different descriptions of the writer, the Christ. These are the words of him who is the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega. So, who died and came to life again, pretty clearly, Christ, writing to the church. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. And so that kind of tells us something about the church. It's a group of poor people, and yet they're rich. They've suffered affliction. Affliction at that time often meant persecution by those in the city with them. So is that, it says, I know about this. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. We'll read about that synagogue of Satan later on. Who do you suppose these folks were?
Well, they oppose Christianity.
Yeah,
You
Uh,
know.
their slander, they're speaking against the Christians who say they are Jews and are not. And interesting, is that really a congregation of Jewish people there? But people who are not really Jewish? Now, in many of the towns in which the church was established, there were pre-existing synagogues of Jews who didn't like this. You thought, well, this should be part of Judaism. It's, they were jealous or whatever. They opposed the Christians.
Those Jews were anti Christianity, and they were like maybe loyal or something like that to Rome.
Well, that could be. Now this says, what's
Someone
that?
tried to defend by saying that he doesn't really, he's saying that these are actually Gentiles in disguise, saying that they're not really Jews, they're just trying to impersonate Jews, but the language, and Jesus called out the Jews and said that your father was the devil. Okay, so there's no reason to say that, well, well, there's some confusion about the identity of these people calling themselves Jews. No, we don't use it that much in our language today as Christians. We don't call ourselves Jews. I mean, we distance ourselves from that and say, well, these people are ethnically Jews, but basically means that you're a follower of Yahweh. I mean, we see that in Romans, that
Right.
Paul says that a Jew is, one who believes, and so I'm just trying to say we kind of shy away from calling ourselves Israel or Jews. We tend to, like, I guess today, distance ourselves from that, and
Yeah,
I can't answer the question why we talk like that today, but I'm just making a comment as to how we talk today and kind of think of ourselves.
so, technically or spiritually, the church is the descendant of the Jewish state or the Jewish community by faith. By faith, as Abraham had, so are Christians the real descendants of Abraham, not physical descendants necessarily, but spiritual descendants. And that's what you're pointing out. Maybe he's getting to that. They're claiming to be descendants of Abraham, but they're really not. Maybe physically or spiritually. But it's interesting that the church is opposed by the synagogue of Satan. So there's opposition, I guess that's the point. And we don't know a whole lot about it. But the point is there was opposition to the church in that area. Do not be afraid of what you're about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. And so there's another interesting question. Is there a significance about 10 days?
It could go either way, literal or symbolic, but it probably is symbolic.
I think so. I think the emphasis is it's a temporary period.
Right.
It's gonna happen, but there's gonna be an end to it. And so just these words are of tremendous comfort, aren't they? If you have some idea of what's going to happen. That's why if you go in for surgery or if you go in for some medical treatment, you like the doctor, whoever, to go over in detail what's going to happen. How long are you going to be out of it? How long before you're going to recover? How long until you get to go home? And that makes it a lot easier to bear. And so I think that's what this is designed. Do not be afraid. It's going to happen. It's going to have a limit. And it's going to be persecution, but be faithful.
There's a lot of things. I don't have the quote. I lost the quote.
God will still be in control.
We have to be careful about the idea of persecution because, okay, we can clearly say in our culture here where we live at, we're not being persecuted for our faith. And so when we hear people Christians being persecuted, we're like, got that survivor's guilt. I feel guilty. I'm not being persecuted. And then you have people who get up, leaders who get up and say, persecution, people are ready to be persecuted. That I don't think the Bible teaches that you want to be gun-ho about persecution. And I can't think up the quote now, but the church history book that I quote, I have a quote here, basically said that, okay, that's not healthy because some Christians were gun-ho about persecution and that made persecution even worse. And going through persecution isn't the greatest thing.
No.
And so I just two things. Don't glorify persecution. Expect it. But don't idolize it, because it's not our salvation, and we can see in the seven churches that persecution isn't predominant thing or problem in all 7 churches. I mean,
Right.
you know,
But
so,
many of them are warned that there's going to be that,
and
or that
it can have side effects too. I mean, persecution can have side effects. There was a moment in time in history that certain parts where Christians were caught and they were tortured for their faith, you'll be questioned for your leadership if you did not have scars on your body. You come in here, look, here's Alan teaching. That's strange. There's not a mark on your body. And Patrick, there's not a mark on your body. You guys haven't been tortured for the faith. What kind of leadership are you? And, you know, this, in my journey as a visiting churches, that has not negatively been brought up or glorified, but just the idea that, we should, about persecution, and not glorifying it.
that's the question. Here he goes, he says, it's 10 days, but then look at the next sentence, he says, be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life.
And that connects with what he says, I became dead, but now I became alive.
But the point is, we're not tempted above that which we're able to bear. But if we are tempted, and that means that God is saying, you can handle this. To some people, resisting that temptation would lead to death. And
Is he implying here that some of them probably will die?
I think otherwise, why bring that up?
Right.
Yeah. But as you pointed out, Michael, it raises a question. And, we seem to have it pretty good, but we know there's persecution in some parts of the world. If you read the report from Elsa Springer in Germany, there are people who are refugees from Iran and Iraq who come in there, and literally they fled because if they stayed, they would be killed. And if they're sent back to those countries, they would be killed. And so they seek asylum in Germany and other countries of Europe. And the church there, it seemed like almost all the time that she writes, they've got a family living in the church building because they can't really go out. They've got to stay in the church building. If they're caught on the street, they'll be arrested and sent back. These are people where it's a life or death matter.
So in other words, it's sort of like, they're illegal. And
Illegal aliens there, they are.
Well, I think according to the law in Germany, they have to live there for a certain length of time before they become eligible to be considered for asylum. And
But they can't work.
Right.
6 months, something like that.
And they have to, I think when they're in the church building, it's like they're claiming asylum in the church, right?
And they have.
Well, we had families living in a couple of different churches here in Chicago.
Yes, that's
right.
And they couldn't come out.
Yeah.
So they've gotten close to a couple of those families that
Yeah.
came up
Yeah.
and got their papers, but they had to go to the original city that they showed up at.
Right.
So they had to leave their church and go, but they found a church like Cologne and some other place.
Yeah.
So the point is that there is persecution going on. And, you sometimes wonder, should we be doing more? Should we be pressing the issue more than we are? Should we be more confrontational? You said, where are the scars?
Right.
Should we be pushing it so that happens? It's a tough question to answer.
I admit that I probably come across people like right where the red line is at Wilson. People are talking about Marxism. Last week, last Saturday, yesterday, there was the hammer and the sickle. table man for Russia, okay, pro-Russian party. I didn't go and talk to them, but, you know, I should talk to these people who are just, you know, and try to see if I can maybe get a conversation about Christ in there.
Yeah,
You
wow.
know, I'm like,
They might throw you out or punch you out, but you never know.
I'm just saying that, you know, I mean, you know, I admit that I need to, you know, probably say that a little more, you know, be more expressive about my faith, you know, when meeting up with people out on the street.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I guess you're asking what is it that more we can be doing or anything like that, you know?
It was a good question. Where are the scars?
Yeah, so.
Paul had them. As far as we know, some of the others.
So
Yeah.
and there's another story I heard basically, which is up to date today. I don't want to think about just that, but there were missionaries in Afghanistan and they were being executed one by one. The story I just heard, you know, a few months ago, and they were all huddled together, praying for one another, praying about the situation until they got rescued. But the Taliban was executing them one by one, so they were praying about that, and then they were taken out. And now here they're brought back into the free world, the West, and they're like, we want to go back. I mean, I'm not sure that's help. I mean, I understand we want to be gathered together and pray, and that's a good thing and that's positive, but to be praying about who's going to be executed next, you know, huddled together, and I'm not sure that's healthy, my opinion.
Well, but it happens. And that's what they faced in the first century. So that's just a short paragraph there to the church in Smyrna, but it gave rise to these thoughts to us. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes will not be hurt at all by the second death. And that's the important consideration. This one of the conclusions for these letters. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So that kind of ties it to us, doesn't it? Each one perhaps could see what's said to the others. I wonder if they were all sent in one big package to each church or a separate letter to each. Maybe they shared them. Anyway, that's Smyrna. What else? Pergamum. Know anything about Pergamum? No real rebukes to Smyrna, but we'll see. Pergamum means citadel. It was the ancient capital of the Roman province of Asia.
Did you say sentinel?
What?
Did you say sentinel?
Citadel, a citadel like a fort or.
Oh, okay.
And so as a capital of that province, there was a lot of emperor worship there. So
Asia Minor was like the center for emperor worship. I don't know which, maybe some cities were more motivated about it than others.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Anyway, to the angel of the church in Pergamum, right? These are the words of him who has the sharp, double-edged sword. The word of God is like a sharp, double-edged sword. And that's what he saw in the image in the first chapter. Imagine somebody, how would you, the sword coming out of his mouth. I know where you live, where Satan has his throne. Maybe a reference to that emperor worship and idol worship.
Idols.
Yeah. Yet you remain true to my name. You did not renounce your faith in me, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was put to death in your city where Satan lives. So, but there was persecution there. If you think of the city of Satan, I don't know, what do you think of? in some parts of this country, you tell them you're from Chicago, they say, oh, that's the city of Satan. Because there's been some corruption in Chicago. There are a lot of murders in Chicago compared to other places.
Some people
A lot
said
of crime.
that, like New Orleans was,
Okay.
an evil, and that's, Hurricane Katrina was,
Oh, yeah.
God's vengeance against New Orleans because of it being an evil place,
Well,
If that's the case.
which I don't believe at all,
It's
but
happening all over.
that's right. That's right.
yeah, I know.
What happened in Spain,
Yeah, we had floods there.
oh, over 200 people.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, the city of Satan, where Satan lives. Nevertheless, and so, you're resisting. You did not renounce your faith even when one guy was put to death. But I have a few things against you. How'd you feel if we had that said to you? You have people there who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to entice the Israelites to sin by eating food sacrificed to idols and by committing sexual immorality. We ran into Balaam in Jude and talked a little bit about him. He was the one who was bribed by the king of Moab to curse the Israelites. And he shouldn't have gone with him, but he did. But when he opened his mouth to curse the Israelites, out came blessings to the Israelites. So the king who hired him was not happy. But later on, what do we read? Near to the end of the book of Numbers. Let's see. To get this right. Balaam was one who was involved. Oh, verse 15 of Numbers chapter 31. Have you allowed all the women to live? He asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and were the means of turning the Israelites away from the Lord in what happened at Peor, so that a plague struck the Lord's people. Now kill all the boys. What went on there is that they kind of tried to infiltrate the Israelites through a strategy of intermarriage. So they marry our daughters, and we'll get together, and they did, but the daughters were leading them to idol worship. And evidently, that was Balaam's advice. The guy is really quite a case. He wanted to get that reward. And so he said, I can't curse them directly, but infiltrate through intermarriage and bring them down that way. And so evidently there was something like that going on in Pergamum. Instead of a frontal assault, it's kind of a subtle thing. I don't know how to infiltrate the church and keep them busy with other things or with things of the world. I don't know. But that's the way that Satan works, doesn't he? He doesn't say, turn your back on the church, just stop going. He'll say, well, don't pay that much attention to what you're here. Check your phone during the sermon.
It's just like now, society, that don't attend church or believe in God or whatever. They want us to be open-minded about things that's going on.
So it's a subtle thing, get those Christians involved in the things of the world, elections, and other things, rather than focusing on the spiritual objectives and showing the love of Jesus. And that seems to be the type of thing that was going on.
We have churches today, and it's not from the outside, it's from the inside. We have Christians today supporting sexual morality. Okay, Brown Line Church over there at the Davis Theater, and like lesbian support groups. Okay, it's cool, man, to be supportive of LGBTQ. Like, even in your own, that paper, the Christian Chronicle, what was going on at ACU, Abilene Christian University, where they're pressuring the school to recognize same-sex couples. Okay, it's but even on our conservative Bible college campuses.
Yeah.
I wasn't there, this was not happening at the time I was there, but recently, before COVID, students were pressuring the school to recognize homosexuality. Okay, you've got to send. They were doing it at Moody too. Okay, because I asked the Moody Bible Institute students. Yeah, they're pressuring they're pressuring the faculty to adopt this. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is don't shrug this off and say, well, the teachings of Balaam commit sexual morality. It's still relevant today.
Satan can put people to death, but at the same time, he can make the church ineffective by infiltrating with all of these ideas of the world.
And the church that I left a few years ago that I was involved with, this wasn't the reason, but I'm like, they're voting on changing their membership to accept homosexuality, sexual morality. They wanted, the clause was broader than that. Yeah. The policy was like, we're not going to tolerate any sexual morality, for our membership. But there were some Christians in there. They wanted to change it. Oh well, we got to change it because they won't come here. Because you don't approve our behavior. I'm like, there are churches in the city that don't have a problem with it, but I guarantee you, the sexual moral are not lining up outside, banging on their doors and saying, accept us because these more conservative churches, they don't want us, so you have to accept us. That does not exist.
That's right. It's not a key to growth, but it's a key to disappearance, really. And this time, the time of Pergamum, it was eating to sin by eating food sacrificed to idols and by committing sexual immorality. So it was the same sexual immorality, but just compromise with the things of the world. Somehow have fellowship with the food sacrificed to idols. Those people are going to the pagan temples.
We still have 2 food laws. We cannot eat blood. Okay, goes back to Genesis, goes back to the blood. Yeah, you can eat meat, but you got to drain the blood. Okay, and then Paul says, yeah, go to the store, go to the market, buy your food, don't ask questions. Somebody says, oh, hey, this is sacrificed to Zeus or my God, or I offered it to my Mary statue, or something like that, or my God, Vishnu.
Don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, we're not going to fellowship. We don't fellowship with it. I know that's rare. That would be really rare in this culture, but it's still, some cultures it might be more like in Asia, it might be maybe a little more, common, but here in the United States.
I didn't bring it today, but I still have that prayer request for the work in India that was given out in April of this year, and I still pray to God about that, about how the Christians are under persecution in the land of the Hindus. And anyway, that just struck me as They're really on the forefront there. The church is growing there. There are people being converted. They have schools of preaching, orphanages. But anyway, things sacrificed to idols. Likewise, you also have those who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans, like the people from Ephesus. But repent, therefore, otherwise I will soon come to you and will fight against them with the sword of my mouth. So, a warning.
What is he saying here that, this church that should like disfellowship those people and
Well, he doesn't say that specifically, but I think he said you've got to make a clear differentiation between the church and the world. And maybe by doing that, you'll get some people to come and rededicate themselves. What do you think, Adam? What do you think?
well, it sounds like he's telling you to disassociate yourself.
Yeah,
Those faithful members of the church, you need to separate yourself
Yeah,
from those people.
repent.
Make it clear that these people are not teaching correctly, and
yeah,
that if you want to be faithful, you should not listen to what they say, don't follow them, and
yeah, we want to be accepting and loving, but there comes a time when you have to take a stand and let it be known what your stand is, whether it's in the church or in your individual lives.
And I suppose if the assuming that these churches had like elders or something,
Yeah,
maybe you would go to the elders and talk to them, and if they don't listen to you, I suppose then you leave
yeah,
and start
Yeah.
another
yeah,
congregation or find some other way to worship, because you're just you're endangering yourself.
so it's pretty serious. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna, kind of offering a little hope there at the end. Yeah, you can overcome. And they have some of this manna, which is the strength or what the food provided by God to the Israelites in the wilderness. I will also give him a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to him who receives it. What's the white stone? It's kind of like a token of admission to something, admission to the promised land, if you will. First thing I thought of when I read about the white stone, Paul says to the Corinthians, the stone that followed them, that was Christ. But I think this is a different image. It's a white stone with a new name written on it. We're going to read more about the new name later in Revelation.
Stone is permanent,
Yeah, people will have his name
strong and permanent. Okay.
imprinted on it, not just on a stone, but on their heads. So anyway, so it's a serious warning, but then to him that overcometh, you can overcome. And then you'll be given admission to the eternal
with that
kingdom.
white stone, those are the ones that believe in Christ.
Yeah, they're faithful.
Yeah.
A new name.
Mhm.
So we'll be learning more about the new names as we go on. Well, where are we? Any comments on that? Thyatira is next. You know anything about Thyatira? Let's see.
You know, we got Lydia. was from
Yeah.
Thyatira.
That's about the mention that we have in the New Testament, Lydia, a seller of purple encountered at Philippi, was from the city of Thyatira. It was a city that was founded by Seleucus, or if that's the right, which was one of the successors to Alexander back after he died. And so it was a military outpost, and they had, a center of trade is about all I could find out about it. But maybe that's why Lydia's headquarters was there, if you will. But
He has a different name now.
yeah, these all have different names. Smyrna is called Izmir, and what's it?
Akhisar.
Yeah, they have different names under the Turks. So if you're ever going to Turkey, you can visit these, but you have to look for different names.
That's where the 7 churches are.
Yes, in the Roman province of Asia, which is modern day Turkey.
Right.
It sticks out, it's across from Greece. So if you ever want to go there, you can go to Istanbul and
Hasn't Patrick been to Ephesus, or is what was supposed to go there, but
yeah, I think for
Something
some
like
reason.
There was some kind of political unrest in Turkey at the time, and so they didn't go.
Well, they got Christians also.
some.
I guess a few, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe in Istanbul. Istanbul used to be Constantinople, which was the headquarters of a large empire, but since 1453,
They right across from Asia.
yeah.
Well, Constantine it's part of it is in Europe and part of it is in Asia. There's what is it? Bosphorus?
Yeah, the
Between-
Dardanelles and the Bosphorus.
The Dardanelles.
So
I can never remember which one is.
and the Sea of Marmora in between. Anyway, it'll be interesting. Well, we'll hold off on Thyatira till next time. We're not in a hurry. There's that.
Istanbul Church of Christ comes up.
Oh,
Doesn't say
okay.
very much, but
Why you think there'd be
Maybe.
persecution?
I think in the Christian Chronicle I've seen a little bit about
Yeah,
it.
Turkey, once the Ottoman Empire fell, a fellow came along and tried to make it into more of a secular nation so that it wasn't, under the Sharia or the Muslim code. But the pressure is to do that, to come out of Turk was his name.
I met a missionary, he wasn't a part of the Campbell movement, but he escaped with his life, but his colleagues did not escape with their life. They were warned to get out of it, they were warned to leave
Where,
Turkey.
oh, okay.
I don't know specifically where in Turkey, but, his wife, his wife and his family were missionaries there.
Wow.
And then somehow, I don't know what it was, they were warned by their friends, you need to leave, but yeah, they were a bit too late. They knifed one of them. He was knifed, but his colleague was dead, but he survived the knife. So I don't know what happened.
When did this happen?
Within probably the last 10 years or something like that. Before COVID, somewhere between COVID and I guess 7 years or something like that, some sort of span. So
Persecution is real.
They weren't native, like I said.
Okay, thank you, Jacob and Matt.
Bye.
God bless. I don't know how to turn it off.
I can't go on Wednesday.
Well, Wednesdays would be a bad day for us.